Dillon Gabriel coming full circle with a game against his former team coming up this Saturday. Stutsman making all the list, and some big time recruiting nuggets coming your way on today's episode of Locked On Sooners.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome to Locked On Sooners, and thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege and use code LOCKEDONCollege for a first deposit match up to $100. Daily fantasy sports made easy at prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege. Thank you for joining us. My name is John Williams. You can follow me on Twitter at John9Williams. My buddy here is Josh Helmer. You can follow him on Twitter at JoshOnRef. You can also hear him Monday through Friday from 9 to noon on the KREF Sports app. And Josh, this Saturday in Norman, 11 a.m. Central Time, the Oklahoma Sooners welcome the UCF Knights. It's their second game against a brand new Big 12 program this year after beating Cincinnati 20-6 in their Big 12 opener. But this one has a little bit different kind of a special meaning to it, as Gabriel welcomes in his former team and former coach, Gus Malzahn, and the Knights.
And of course, Jeff Lebby spent time with Dillon Gabriel at UCF. So yeah, there's a lot of threads that connect the two programs. How much does it factor in your mind? I don't think a ton for Dillon Gabriel. I think, if the game was being played at the Bounce House, maybe there's more to this. But the fact that it's in Norman, and to me, Dillon Gabriel, now this again probably isn't the same for UCF fans. I kind of remember back to when Dillon Gabriel made the move to Oklahoma. You'd see some Twitter comments here or there about, oh, he's focused more on name, image, likeness, or there wasn't always rosy things from the UCF fans for Gabriel on his arrival to Oklahoma. But I don't think Gabriel didn't leave UCF on negative terms. So there's no bad blood for him on his end of the equation, which, a lot of times when you start getting into, okay, are they going to be too high, too low for a game? The emotions, I don't think, are going to be something that Dillon Gabriel is going to be caught up in.
I think this year altogether, Gabriel's come in with a bit of a chip on his shoulder anyway. This game is no different than I think how he's approached every game, in that he's coming out to prove a point that what people had to say about him a year ago isn't necessarily accurate. Yeah, I mean, there were ways that he could have been better, but he's shown that he's improved in a lot of those areas this year, and he's been on a tear. I mean, there's a reason why he's risen to number 2 in the Heisman odds, according to FanDuel. It's because he's having a phenomenal season and putting together some big time moments, and this is just another opportunity for him to go do that. Maybe there's some extra motivation to go beat his former team, but I think if you need extra motivation to go win a football game, you're probably not motivated in the right way in the first place. So he's coming in, I think, very locked in, very focused on what he and the Oklahoma Sooners need to do offensively. If anything, this kind of gives them a little bit of an insight into Gus Malzahn and what maybe some of his tendencies are between Gabriel and Lebby, and knowing kind of what he might want to do philosophically. But at this point in time in college football, there are very few secrets. You play 6 games in a season and you've pretty much laid out most of your cards, if not all of them. And so there's not really maybe that much of an edge. Gus Malzahn and his staff will have really good understanding of Gabriel and what he wants to do, and Jeff Lebby and what he wants to do offensively. But I think really what it just kind of comes down to is almost coming home a little bit. Now, he's not going back to Orlando, so he's not going back to his former school, but just being able to kind of have a little bit of closure with that part of his life, the UCF part of his life. I know that he's very appreciative and thankful for the opportunity that he got there and the time that he spent there and the way he grew as a quarterback. But it's also time to say, hey, I'm an Oklahoma Sooner now, and we're going forward, and we've got big goals and big aspirations. And that starts with playing really, really well this week against UCF, a team that can be had on the defensive side of the football. So I think that all the motivation is there. It could be Iowa State coming to town. It could be Texas coming to town. I think the motivation would be the same for Gabriel, but there is kind of a full circle closure moment here for him and Jeff Lebby.
Which a lot of us in life have those types of moments professionally or personally. And yeah, this is going to be one of those for Dillon Gabriel, no doubt. The other component to it for me, John, and I don't, I agree with everything you said right there. The other component to me, for Dillon Gabriel is, given what UCF has been or not been defensively, you've got a chance if again there's too much thinking going on this week for Dillon Gabriel, which I don't think there will be. I tend to agree with your assessment of all of it, but let's just play the hypothetical and say there is. Well, UCF's not very good stopping the run. So theoretically, you can take a lot of the thinking away from Dillon Gabriel this week. And that's one of the things we want to see from Oklahoma anyways, is that they're going to go out and run the football effectively.
Yeah, that's the opportunity they have in front of them. And even Dillon Gabriel is going to have a chance to potentially have another big day on the ground, something he's shown very capable of this year. But if we were having our choice over how Oklahoma won this game, we'd love it if they ran out for 400 yards like Kansas did a couple weeks back and are able to put this game away on the ground. And Dillon Gabriel's not having to throw very much, not because he can't do it, just because you got to figure out some things to your running game as you go forward. And you don't want to be a one-dimensional team. You got to figure out how to get your running backs becoming more effective, more efficient, and help your offensive line moving forward. And this is a great opportunity to do that. That's not to say that UCF doesn't know the challenges that they've got in front of them, and understanding that Oklahoma is going to have a good rushing attack, or at least come in trying to stop Oklahoma's run game and put the ball in Dillon Gabriel's hands. But Oklahoma's got to go, and they've got to continue to attack on the ground. And for better or for worse, you've got to keep attacking on the ground and to make teams respect it so that you can air it out and take advantage of this deep wide receiver core.
Jeff Lebby, I mean, there's nothing there either, right? I just don't think coach is so much less likely to get caught up in any of that because you're older first and foremost, right? And I think you're typically, as you age in life, do a better job of, to put this as bluntly as I can, caring less about what other people think about you, right? And that's not to say that you don't care about the relationships that you build, but you're just not as likely to get caught up in those kinds of emotions. So I expect, like I've been calling for, John, again and again and again, just a business-like approach from OU.
Yeah, and I'm trying to remember, I guess maybe Lebby wasn't there with Gus Malzahn. Do I have the timeline right? Did he go to Ole Miss after Heupel left for Tennessee? Is that the same time that Lebby went to Ole Miss? And so maybe, Lebby missed Gus Malzahn a little bit.
Yeah. I don't think he was with Gus Malzahn.
Okay. So then, but I think there is like a healthy respect for the profession. And again, Lebby's going to have a healthy respect for UCF because that's the school that brought him out of the NAIA fire. Literally, he was with the Southeastern Fire of the NAIA and got him back into FBS football. And so I think Lebby will have, all due respect for the UCF Knights, but also he's going to go out and try to continue making a statement as well as an offensive coordinator. This is a team that last year they had areas where they were not very good, and they got to continue to prove that last year is not the same as this year, that this is a much more efficient third down team, a much more efficient red zone team, and they got to keep that going this week against the UCF Knights. A player who is having a heck of a season in addition to Dillon Gabriel is Dannystzman, who is rightfully falling on all of the All-American lists. We'll talk about just what Dannystzman is capable of over the next 6 games of this season coming up after the break.
Football season. We're right here in the swing of it. College football time. You got to love it. And why not have some fun with some daily fantasy sports prize picks? It's the most fun that I've had, winning up to 25 times my money this football season. It's easy, ladies and gentlemen. You just select 2 or more players and pick more or less on their projected stats and place your entry. And oh, by the way, one reason we love it It's really simple and quick to play. I can make my picks and submit my entry in less than 60 seconds by going over to prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege. Use code lockedoncollege for a first deposit match up to $100. Just to give you a feel of the landscape, how about Deacon Hill? Take this and run with it, everybody out there. How about less than 99.5 passing yards for Deacon Hill? That's the Iowa quarterback. They are not throwing for a lot of yards against anybody. So there's a less than for you out there. But go to prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege. Use code lockedoncollege for a first deposit match up to $100. Daily fantasy sports made easy.
Oklahoma's quarterback of the defense, Stutsman, is having a phenomenal season. He's first in the Big 12 in total tackles. He's first in the Big 12 in Pro Football Focus's stops metric, which takes into account down and distance in which that tackle is made. I know sometimes we make so much of, oh man, they made a tackle 10 yards down the field. Well, if that tackle was 10 yards down the field on 3rd and 12, you get a stop for it because you forced a 4th down. It's all about efficiency and success rate and advanced analytics. Anyway, but then he's also second in the Big 12 in tackles for loss. Well, being awarded rightfully so by the AP, the Athletic, CBS Sports, ESPN, Fox Sports, and USA Today Sports with a midseason All-American selection at linebacker.
Yeah, I mean, everywhere you look, Dannystzman is a midseason All-American at linebacker, and he should be. There's no reason he wouldn't be a midseason All-American at linebacker anywhere you look. The tackle numbers are sensational. The TFLs are obviously up this season as well. Just the impact plays that he's making across the board are up. And oh, by the way, he's not the architect, I guess, right? But he's the quarterback defensively for this defensive turnaround, this defensive surge that Oklahoma's embarking on right now. The massive points per game drop or jump, depending on jump up in the national rankings there, but drop in terms of the points that Oklahoma's surrendering on a game-by-game basis. 3rd downs, I mean, we've run down the numbers a bunch of times, but the defense for Oklahoma has made big-time leaps, and that is in no small part because of what Stutsman is doing. He's been sensational this season. He's clearly the best player on Oklahoma right now, so there's no reason that he wouldn't be, yes, a midseason All-American anywhere you look.
Yeah, as much as Brent Venables is kind of the face for Oklahoma's turnaround, Stutsman seems to be the face for the defensive turnaround in particular. Just the growth and development from a year ago where he was good at times, but also he's got a better understanding of what he's being expected to do on the defense. But I also think just the leadership role that he's taken with the unit and bringing guys like Jaren Kanak along and Kobe McKenzie and Kip Lewis. I mean, you're seeing these young linebackers who didn't get a ton of playing time last year factor in and play significant roles this year. I mean, Kanak is a starter. Kip Lewis, I mean, how valuable has that dude been? Just every time he gets out there, he's making plays on the football, whether it's in the backfield or at the line of scrimmage or in the passing game. I mean, this group of linebackers is kind of taking their cues from Stutsman, and for a lot of the defense, the same thing. I mean, the physicality, the intensity, he's bringing it and they're following his lead. And that's helped Oklahoma become one of the top, a top 10 scoring defense, in college football. And so that's a great start for him. And I mean, it starts making you wonder, and we don't want to cut short his time at Oklahoma, but it makes you wonder, like, is this potentially his last year? Because he's potentially raising a lot of draft stock this year ahead of, the 2024 NFL draft. I hope he wants to stick around for one go around the sun in the SEC, but I mean, you can't fault a dude if he wants to go early and take advantage of the buzz and the opportunity that comes before him. But just what he's done, and I think what Brent Venables said in the offseason at OU Media Day, just about how Stutsman has taken on this significant leadership role in leading player-led practices. Last year he couldn't do that. This year he's doing it. And I think that's no small part of why Oklahoma's defense is finding so much more success this season.
No, I'm with you, and it's been fun to watch this for Stutsman. The guy led the Big 12 in tackles a season ago, and yet it's I think clear to me, and pretty much everybody watching that he's better this season, right? I mean, he's on a great pace and just the impact plays again. I keep coming back to that for Danny Stutsman. So, hey, if he makes the decision to come back to Oklahoma for one more year, I think he's probably in this category regardless. But depending upon the team success that Oklahoma has the rest of the way, and then potentially what would happen the following year, Danny Stutsman, and again, maybe he winds up this way regardless because it's been a little while. Kenneth Murray throughout the end of his throughout the career pretty good, and then at the end of it obviously wound up being a high draft pick. But the totality of Danny Stutsman's career, this feels like for a linebacker at Oklahoma, the best we've seen in a long time, and it's sort of shaping up alongside the personality helps as well, I think, in this department. But Danny Stutsman to me is an all-timer right now for Oklahoma, and that legendary status, oh man, it just cranks up another notch if you make the decision to come back. I tend to agree with you. I'd be surprised if that happens, and that's not to speak it into existence. That's just kind of what you expect given other similar situations over the years. But man, I'd love to see him come back. It's fun to see him in this position. And he's not the only guy that you look at for Oklahoma. Obviously, Dillon Gabriel, who we're talking about the emotions of playing UCF this week. That's somebody that is on a lot of midseason Big 12 lists, whether it's All-American or not, right? But Dillon Gabriel and a bunch of Sooners that at the beginning of the season, John, it would have been crazy to some to have these guys on an all Big 12 first team. Well, now it's like everywhere you look, those guys, it's up and down offensively and defensively. There's a ton of Sooners on those midseason lists.
As they should be. They're 6-0. They have one of the best offenses in the country, one of the best defenses in the country. And so all of those awards should be coming their way. It's been impressive to watch this week as the Sooners get ready to take on a really good rushing attack with the UCF Knights. A lot's going to come down to how well Danny Stutsman and the linebackers in particular contain a John Reese Plumlee, who's a really good rushing quarterback. In addition to him, it seems like him, Canick, Kip, the defensive front, the safeties, I mean, they're going to have their hands full.
Yeah, especially if Rice Plumlee is healthy, which we're led to believe that he is. But if he's, the leg injury and everything, if he's truly back and has that burst about him, then it's not lip service from Brent Venables. At least it doesn't sound like lip service from Brent Venables. He makes me believe him when I listen to him talk about the skill guys for UCF, that they're pretty good. And obviously, the quarterback, again, if he's physically right, that's a taxing element with his speed. Rice Plumlee is a bona fide athlete getting downhill when he wants to. So that will be a challenging thing for Oklahoma. And I think a good test for this defense. Just one more example of, okay, has this OU defense again turned another corner where you face a quarterback that can really run a little bit? You don't let him do a bunch of that.
Yeah, it's going to be a big time challenge, especially on the ground for the Sooners this Saturday. One thing that's not been as challenging as Oklahoma's work in the 2025 recruiting class. They're gotten a big head start on that front. We're talking about another player that is projected to Oklahoma, plans on committing in the next couple of weeks. That's one Marcus James out of Carl Albert. We'll do that after the break.
Don't take a chance on your life, your well-being. Don't take a chance on your loved ones' well-being. Have that peace of mind. I think of myself, get into a situation where you're traveling and you don't have the proper antibiotics or life-saving medication that you need, and you don't want that situation for yourself or, again, your loved ones. That's why the Jace case, it's what you're looking for, a personalized emergency medication kit that contains 5 essential antibiotics that treat the most common and deadly bacterial infections. You can also customize your case if you want and add additional life-saving medications based on your own individual unique needs. And oh, by the way, they're customizing and they are optimizing and they are adding medications all the time. They're constantly expanding that medication offering. So go to jacemedical.com, enter our code locked on at checkout for a $20 discount on your order. That's promo code locked on, LOCKEDON, over at jacemedical.com, JASE medical.com.
The Oklahoma Sooners are picking up big-time momentum for 2025 athlete Marcus James out of Carl Albert High School in Oklahoma. On Wednesday, Sam Spiegelman of On3 issued an On3 prediction favoring the Sooners. Brandon Drum of OU Insider at Rivals joined his partner Parker Thune, who had earlier predicted Marcus James to OU back in July. Drum issues a Rivals Futurecast favoring the Sooners again on Wednesday, October 18. Marcus James is planning to commit on November 2 at Carl Albert High School, and it looks like it's the Oklahoma Sooners recruitment to lose at this point.
Yeah, that's fantastic to see, fantastic to hear, and not surprised that a Carl Albert kid is thinking about coming to the University of Oklahoma, given obviously what's going on at Carl Albert with Sperry and the running back over there at Carl Albert as well. So Marcus James, he's kind of maybe a part of that Sooner trio when it's all said and done from over there. And I think the expectation, right, is tight end, 6'3", 210. Obviously, he could keep adding weight and hopefully, physically continues to improve and everything. But the offers, they're impressive. I always say, let's look at the offers sheet. It's 2025, so don't get super carried away just yet in terms of, okay, not this star rating or that star rating. Arkansas, TCU, A&M, Utah, Arizona, Kansas, Oklahoma State. I mean, there's some big time offers on that list. So that's nice for OU.
Yeah, it's a intriguing player, someone who could probably feature on either side of the football. And I mean, you never know, you might see him on defense as well, given that Oklahoma looks to find these guys that are just legit athletes to put at, cheetah, safety, linebacker, something like that. But he's got the size already as a, right now a rising junior to be able to be an effective player on the offensive side of the football as well. Dude's a really good wide receiver, a really good athlete. You watch some of his huddle highlights and just really good with the ball in space. So it wouldn't surprise me at any point in time to see the priority shift a little bit from, offense to defense or back and forth, or maybe they just don't know exactly where they want to slot him in yet. But again, it wouldn't surprise me to see him on either side of the football. You could see him at linebacker. You could see him at safety. You could see him at wide receiver or tight end because he's just that good of a player. And again, Josh ran down the offer sheet. That's significant. If some of these Power 5 big time programs like a Texas A&M, a Utah, Arkansas are offering, I think that means something when you're in a recruiting battle like this. Another big time athlete that Oklahoma is looking pretty good for as he's set to make his commitment on Thursday. And that's Michael Boganowski out of Kansas, a guy that Oklahoma has been in a pretty heavy recruiting battle with Kansas State for over the last, 6 months, year or so. But lately things have been trending towards the Sooners. It sounds like we're going to get an answer on that come Thursday evening. So hopefully that does turn the Sooners' way.
Yeah, that'll be great news if and when that arrives for Oklahoma. And, with Marcus James, somebody that is listed as an athlete and probably, yeah, you're right, that looks like Oklahoma's thinking defense for him. I love somebody that you go to 247 and he's described as a tight end, right? So it's and a lot of times some of those great defensive players come from offensive backgrounds too, right? Where they kind of have the ability to go attack the football. And everybody, for the most part, a lot of times, if you're really good, probably has played a little bit of offense and defense in high school. And then you get to the college level and coaches have an idea of where they're going to put you. If it's cheetah, linebacker, tight end, whatever, right? It's kind of depends on the coaching staff. But I like when you think about somebody translating to the next level defensively that oftentimes they do have a little bit of an offensive background because you want somebody that's not scared, not afraid to go attack the football and come away with an interception, right?
Well, this is what we're seeing out of Jaron Kanik, right? A guy who played Wildcat quarterback in high school, now making the transition to linebacker. I think it's the same thing we're going to see with Eric McCarty whenever he's healthy and available, a dude that played running back and Wildcat quarterback for McAllister, going to transition to play cheetah, safety, linebacker, that kind of hybrid role, probably for the Sooners whenever he gets fully healthy. We won't see him this year, but in the 2024 season, it wouldn't surprise me to see him start to get some snaps and get on the field a little bit. But I mean, Brent Venables is not shy about finding dudes that are just legit athletes that have great traits, and transitioning them from the offensive side of the ball to the defensive side of the ball. We'll see what happens with Marcus James. Again, we're a little under 2 weeks out from that commitment taking place, but then we have Michael Boganowski as well on Thursday. We'll talk about that. Whatever happens, we'll talk about the commitment of Michael Boganowski, whether it goes into Oklahoma's favor or not. We'll also get you ready for UCF as we go through our kind of preview, offense, defense, keys to the game, make our prediction as well on our Friday show. So make sure you're tuned in. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button and that notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. Follow Josh on Twitter at JoshOnRef, myself at John9Williams. The show is at Locked On Sooners and on Facebook, Locked On Sooners Podcast. But until next time, he's Josh Helmer. I'm John Williams. We'll talk to you then. Boomer Sooner.